started in before FRESHFARM when I was working at community food boards, and we've taken this very small organization with I was lucky to find very passionate people that believe in it, and we took this small organization to really be a force to reckon with. Like 3 years, we did a lot, and in 2019, FRESHFARM has gone, through this transition in leadership, and these two organizations were facing a pivotal moment, right? So we came together, both doing incredible work, but we found that this merger was probably the best thing we could do. FRESHFARM had 20 years of experience and one of some of the best farmers markets in the country, incredible education program, and community food works had developed a lot of community-driven programs. And so even both organizations do incredible work, with the merger, we thought that could make sense at that point. So what happened with these measures, like suddenly we realized that having in-house programs like work with farmers, that did education and food distribution, we could use that infrastructure to address problems in a different way, right? It's like before we were working separately providing services, but we saw that with that work, we were struggling how to create really systemic change. And once we merged, we were able to get the infrastructure, the capacity, the community relationships to start looking into a different way, right? We learned that if you can do food distribution without robust education, probably that program won't be that effective. And we can do all the food education we could, but if there's not like a robust local food economy that actually helps people to access that food, it's not going to be that effective. That was the promise of the merger, but there's something that we can do so we could do things together. So you came at that moment. I remember people being like, some people being skeptical, but also funders being really excited about the merger. Mergers are not things that happen very frequently, and I saw a lot of energy behind that merger. I was like, okay, what happens? How we do this? Seems like maybe we can save some money in management, or we can focus on the program or some strategy. So it was a lot of excitement, and we actually got important investments that helped us to go through that phase of understanding how the organizations go together, what's going to be the culture, and that was very important. You guys worked with us in that transformation. Immediately after that, the pandemic came, and we got like a few other investments, not just like providing funding to go through the emergency, but actually those were investments that came into our capacity as an organization, as a new merged organization. So we were able to make investments to get people on development, think about like how we're going to manage the finances at this moment with that emergency going through. And that kind of partnership was really valuable. And in many places, and some of you in the conversations I mentioned, like how important it was to have investment in the organization capacity or organization's capacity in a moment like the pandemic, where we're all focused on providing the most important and needed services. We were able to have some peace of mind that the undervalued organization was funded, and we could think about how we could take advantage of the moment to promote growth, and growth in a different way. It was not just the money that was available because of the emergency, that actually we're able to leverage those investments to create important capacity and get more money. So how is that suddenly these organizations providing services started thinking about the system as a whole, and how we became a food systems organization, right? Because FRESHFARM with the merger now was able to work with the production and the consumption at the same time. And that's something that very few organizations can do. So with the production, we're able to provide important revenue for farmers and incentivize sustainable practices there. We tackle food distribution issues now that we know how fragile our value chains are, creating very short value chain and addressing issues of sustainability at the distribution. We provide the tools and resources to people so they could access food with dignity, with agency, and that includes education at the very early stages. So creating really meaningful changes that bring with them across their lives. And we literally recover tens of thousands of food. We divert them from the landfill with our cleaning program and supporting also food recovery. All these happens like under one roof with FRESHFARM. We're able to work across that. And that actually is something that the dynamics internally have changed because while FRESHFARM had the best farmers markets in the region before the mergers, the way that we saw the market changed, right? From being a space where farmers just come and sell to actually being places where we run our program, right? So I want to tell you a little bit about like that story. So these are network of farmers and producers. Our farmers and producers come from 6 states. What's in green are actually farmers and ranchers, and what's in red are actually the businesses that come to sell to our markets. And in the last 4 years, our markets went from selling $15 million to make $28.5 million in 2022. That amount of revenue created for farmers and ranchers is something that's really difficult to achieve under one organization. Right? It's like if you think about like how much like a food hub can sell, or like individually in farmers markets, like going to like $30 million of growth is impact that we create in the region, connecting the rural and the urban in a very important way. That means jobs, economic development, and for the cities, same, right? That we are in like places where people can come and connect. We add value to the community spaces in one place. 20% of our farmers identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. And what we've seen is that, you know, for some of these farmers, they have grown sales like from 40 to 70% in the last 4 years. And that's like absolutely impact. So again, it's like it's not just like what that happens on the market, because then you see the market is places to create programming. So some of you know about our food distribution program, the Pop-Up Food Hub, which is, you know, something that is born here in see under the imagination of our people, with like how we can do food distribution without a warehouse, how we can have a program that has like minimum infrastructure when we know how difficult it is to get those initial investments, how difficult it is to find the land to build a warehouse. And once you build the warehouse, how difficult it is to keep it full so it's actually sustainable in the long term. So using the infrastructure of farmers markets, that program has exponentially grown now, selling almost $600,000 in food, which is like almost much like small warehouse food hub does, and working with 70 institutions. These like some of the institutions we work with and where they are, and you know, big bubbles need like more distribution, and reaching almost 26,000 bags of produce. That is like more than 300,000 meals if you go into like, you know, what the USDA says. So it's like an incredible amount of impact that happened at the farmers markets. We have the farmers markets, and we do that infrastructure to create this kind of numbers. And you know, then similarly, one of the things that we try to mention to people is like we find ways to be creative and be innovative to do things that happen so the impact grows. With our food access programs, we did 2 things in the last 4 years, thanks to the investment that we're doing with you and the capacity that we put into the organization. One is bringing the largest investment in city food access products plus from paper checks to a card. Like the digitization of the program was very important because the people could actually go and buy food with dignity, without the stigma of like, now you have to make the line for the check and buy. That changed the way we distribute the money to people, because now you get your money in your card automatically every month without the need to go to the market, and then you can go spend it wherever you want or wherever you want. And that kind of agency and dignity is important when we think about food access. So that happened because the investments that you buy us helped create that kind of innovation. And the other one was that, because is that as FRESHFARM is a regional organization now, we created a network of market of food access with a USDA grant. It's the first one in the country that actually goes across multiple states. So this government grant creates an incentive program where people can come to the market, spend their SNAP dollars, and be matched. But this time we have the reciprocity, so people could spend it in Virginia, and Maryland, or in DC. We are able to gather data from all these different states that show the regional impact on that investment for that platform. So again, it's because FRESHFARM now is like the regional, and it's not just adult farmers. There's like more than 80 farmers markets in the government network that get resources from FRESHFARM and the farmers to make to do matching at farmers market. And for footprints, and Jen is here, and I encourage you to have a conversation with Jen, because this program that has been operating for 17 years, which is not just like a nutrition education program, because what is genius about what Jen does is that we actually place a FRESHFARM staff teacher at the school to have capacity in the school, so we could offer true experiential education to children at very early stages. And now we know, after like all these years, that it takes that education goes with their children for their whole life. There was a recent study from GW that shows that the impact lasts forever. You actually change the way you are related to food you start at in early stages. And just like 4 years ago, we were in 14 schools. 10 and 15 were really hard with the measure organization. So now we're in 21 schools in the city. 7,600 children get programming every month. And having that experiential education and seeing the children enjoy what we do is unique. It's like melts your heart when you see these kids being so happy with footprints. Again, those are investments that you have made into a program. So I just have 10 minutes and I can go forever, but the point here is like we are now in this like pivotal moment. The organization has changed, it's growing, and clearly your investments have created like true impact. Again, it's not that the organization received like all the money that we have now. We went in 2019 from $6 million at that time. Now our budget is $11.4 million. And in 2019, we had 60 people, and now we're 160. So this is like true growth, regional impact, and systemic change that your investments have created. We just approved last year for new strategic plan, and the organization is like changing their focus in the way they work. How now we are seeing this systemic approach moving forward, and how we can continue this approach to support people, because all our programs support people. But the other thing that we see is that across the food system, our programs support organizations also. And that kind of impact is what our partners working with farmers and the food distribution, education and recovery, the amount of organizations that FRESHFARM touches on the programming and the way we group everybody is like something that we want to start also considering reporting, because we believe we're like probably one of the most impactful organizations in the region, and not just because we work with thousands of people, because we also work with dozens of organizations that depend on programming so they could improve.
Roaring Brook Foundation is very interested in climate action, so any organization that takes that as a concern, but we know that food systems work is really integrated in mitigating the effects of climate change. So that is a lot of the drive for working with food systems. FRESHFARM came on our radar, I think, in 2017 because Susan Ginsburg, who's one of the other directors on the board, lives in DC and has been a liaison and has a good relationship with Hugo. So we've known Hugo for a long time. Yeah, I think that's mostly what I have to say. I think that's pretty much the summary.
Hugo, do you want to actually say a little bit about the Clark Foundation and their relationship to FRESHFARM? Andrew said.
Yeah, so I got acquainted with the Clark Foundation when actually I joined FRESHFARM. They haven't been a community food works funder at the time, and they've been investing money in our education program. And so at that moment, it was just before the merger, they had made a commitment for a grant for FRESHFARM, and during the transition, people were not sure where that investment should go. So we went to meet in their offices, and we actually talked about the merger and what was happening. So they changed their perspective and size of their investment as we joined. I don't know whether I'm going to talk more about that, but I think they were mostly interested in having leadership of personal minority at that point, so they wanted to bring an investment and a new kind of leadership and ideas that with the transition were coming to FRESHFARM.
I know you touched a little bit on this, Victoria, when you in your introduction, but if you could each just address what makes FRESHFARM a good partner for achieving your foundation's goals. Why did you choose to invest in the way you did here?
Yeah, so the Food Security Initiative really seeks to provide equitable access to regional healthy food in disinvested areas. And so at the time, Community Food Works had just launched, I believe it was around that time, the Pop-Up Food Hub. And coming to the foundation from an international development background, working in agriculture, the idea and the concept of a low infrastructure opportunity to invest in the regional food system while also addressing the really, really urgent needs of distribution, of transportation infrastructure, as well as the capacity was really, really innovative. And so that partnership helped us to access Ward 7 and 8, access the distribution infrastructure, as well as the capacity of the entity and the organization at its time. And since then, we've really grown our partnership to engage more with the early childhood component, definitely deepening our relationship with the Pop-Up Food Hub, but it's really helped advance our efforts as well.
Yeah. So I think we're a small family foundation, so when we become involved in organization, it's really for the long term and creating a relationship that is really sustainable and something that's worthy of our investment in time, because we're all active, passionate members. So, and it's a very small foundation. So when we get involved, we're looking for organizations that really model the ethics that we find important. And I think initially the sort of dispersed power structure and organization of FRESHFARM is really what drew our interest, because it's a grassroots communication, but with really strong leadership all the way through. So the integrated power structure kind of reflecting the food system as an issue. So from every level, things are being addressed and integrated. So the supply, the demand, and then also the more zoomed out mitigated effects of climate change, which is really on our radar. So the fact that all of those issues are being addressed all at once at FRESHFARM is really important to us.
Hugo, in talking about the Clark Foundation, one thing that I learned as we were prepping for this is that Clark is actually in a spend down mode, so they're spending down in 2025. And Andrew definitely talked about kind of legacy and how that fits into their partnership with Fresh Farm. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen and what he's expressed about their stances they're going into their spend down here?
Yeah, and that's probably what I was trying to mention a little bit earlier. But at that point, Clark was focused on funding and a specific opportunity, like a programmatic opportunity at Fresh Farm. And when we went to talk about the merger and what was our plan, we were able to fit into this other priority for them was like the legacy and how they could make an investment to create lasting impact. I think they were trying to do that with their last grants. So they were asking us, what actually is going to change with the merger, how the culture, the leadership, what we're trying to implement, and what was our vision, and we work around that so they could make an investment that catapulted Fresh Farm to actually making that a reality. So they were specifically interested in my leadership at that point, and that was like some of the things that they wanted to invest, and that fit into this like legacy part. Actually, just we thought that was like it, that was in 2020, but like now recently they were able to make like a new investment in a campaign that we're trying to launch. Because like what they're spending now, so we're excited about that.
Do either of you guys want to respond or add something to that?
To the spend down?
Just about about the legacy and just kind of the legacy that maybe you might be looking towards, even not in spending down, but like the larger impact that your investments might be having in Fresh Farm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, at least for me personally, thinking about food as medicine is a really important, compelling way to approach food systems works in the future. And I'm personally a student of yoga, and Ayurveda is a big part of that, so food as medicine is really compelling. And I think Hugo is an example of just how when you start young and with the Food Prince program, it really just, without using too colorful a metaphor, it like plants the seeds that really flourish later in life, and that's a really beautiful thing with the food system work. So
yeah, and I'll just say, when we first started our partnership with Community Food Works, we were really looking at this as market-based access and looking at it from a diversified revenue stream, like an entity that's not just doing food aid, but is doing it in a really innovative way where there's diversified revenue streams. This is something that could potentially become sustainable over time. And I do think that that's still possible, but what we really need to recognize is that the legacy itself is that partnership and the investments that foundations, philanthropy, and government need to make in partnership with these entities, so that they can continue to serve the communities that they're working with, but that partnership is always going to remain there. And so when we look at this from a food security aspect, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but our food security work is also phasing out over the course of the next year, a little bit more urgently. But Fresh Farm is going to remain a partner with our early childhood efforts, and so we recognize that this is not just something that's important for the immediate food access, but it's something that's important for communities as a whole.
Please go ahead and actually, say a little bit more about that.
Yeah. And so Kyle's here, thank goodness. So Kyle is on our early childhood team. So as a part of our strategic shift for the foundation, over the course of the past few years, we've been shifting away from our food systems investments, which was really designed as a wraparound support for our main focus, which is early childhood. And so we have broadened to early childhood, but now we're looking at the different ways that early learning can be complemented by health and nutrition, mental health, housing, and the ways that we could collectively address the issues that communities and families are facing. And so recognizing the immense amount of work that Fresh Farm is doing, not only with early childhood, but also for food access in wards 7 and 8, it was a natural fit to transition that partnership from our food systems investments over to the early childhood team. And so I really encourage you, if you haven't already been familiar with the work that the Bainum Family Foundation is doing in early childhood education, to really dig into it, because not only is it innovative, but it's really partner-led. And so if you have any other questions about early childhood and the work that we're doing, Kyle here will be able to answer, and I believe that Letitia's also on the line as well.
And what I love about that, and from at SAFSF, one of the kind of internal laments all the time is that, and it comes from funders and it comes from staff, they're like, oh, so-and-so, doesn't see themselves as a food funder, but they're doing this, that, and the other. Oh, so-and-so says their priorities are here, but why aren't they also seeing that it's connected to the food? And that is an ongoing, conversation that food, as Hugo said earlier, touches everything. And the production of food, the growing of food, agriculture, everything, and especially when we're talking about environment and climate change. And so, I love that pivot that the Bainum Family Foundation is doing, and just how it shows, if you look at things from a systems perspective, then the connections become much more clear, and people can not cut themselves out of funding a certain thing just because they think it's in a certain priority area that is not theirs. I think we really have to look at things in a much more holistic way. So Morgan, actually, would you talk a little bit more too about your approach to kind of like systems, food systems, and funding as a system, and kind of you have a lot of holistic thoughts about how that all works together.
Well, yeah, and also just to add on to what you just said, I think food has a unique, you are what you eat, we hear that all the time, but I think it has a really unique power to really transform and change all aspects of your life. So whether that's your health, but also the way that you think about the inequities of food and how deep those go, especially in very close quarters to places that have a lot of wealth. So in DC, it's really stark, but within any city, those inequities run deep to the root. And so when you start getting involved in food system work, you can really unravel and start to see how that really impacts your life in ways that you wouldn't maybe initially see. But I think it's compelling to see an organization that's functioning like an organism, sort of every aspect of it contributing to its own thriving survival, really. And like I touched on with the leadership structure of FRESHFARM too, it's like part of the strategic plan is to empower the generation and support of the staff development. So nonprofits have a huge incidence of burnout and exhaustion, and so supporting and nourishing the staff that really put their heart and soul into these efforts is going to create a sustainable long-term future for the food system, but also for the organization. So putting that at the forefront of the strategic plan, I think, is a really beautiful move. And it's something that we take seriously at the Brook Foundation, because leadership is so important in finding the vision for where FRESHFARM is going to be going. So
yeah, great, thank you. I have a couple more questions, but I'm gonna just take a minute and see, are there any questions from the field?
the field.
Peers, anything that you're wanting to be sure that that these folks address while they're up here before I forge ahead?
Maybe can I comment?
Yes.
I just, Victoria mentioned that Bainum started working the pop-up with how very early as almost like we launched, and I think that for me that's like one of an example of how like an investment that looks so isolated, like they were interested in helping us bring food from the farmers to childcare centers, and that was like a direct interest for Bainum, but they never stopped us to be like, no, that is the only thing we're interested in. Like, we are interested in your model and the way that you are doing things, and that has created not just like this growth into the program, but we have farmers that benefited directly from that commercial operation that now own land because of that relationship, or that we were the very first wholesale client for them, so we could buy living food to take to childcare centers, and now we're the smallest of all their clients. So an investment that is trusted into the partner can really create important changes, like just across the value chain. And I think that's something at that point maybe neither us or Bainum realized that it was like what's going to happen, but that is like the result of that kind of investment. And with Morgan, like recently they told us like we're very interested in retention. We don't want organizations just to lose staff. In this moment, we see that it's really hard. And it's the same thing. It's like, that is an important priority for Roaring Brook. But the result of that is not just going to be that we're able to keep our incredible staff. It's like actually a trickle
Trickle down,
down
yeah.
to the other programs that we have and even to farmers or people, right? So it's important that funders find their priorities, and then investments and can have like important effect when we take things on a systemic approach. So,
And when you're in a real partnership where you can also just like be talking about, here's what we're thinking, where more can you take that both ways, you know?
Like now, I forgot to say that, but now we are the same way we see the markets as hubs. We are starting to do that at schools, right? Like Jen and Rebecca and Caroline collaborating, so we could bring also food to the school. So after the kids get the interaction at the classroom or at the garden, now they can, with their parents, buy food as they leave the school. And there's like a point for food access where Nick is helping us to bring like snap matching. It's like, so that is like really like a way that we can create system change, right? Like one stop where you can do all these things. And it's like an investment that came because, Bainum helped us to have the Pop-Up Food Hub, because with the merger we're able to see that potential, that how we can interact together. That is like very powerful.
So we touched a little bit on the strategic plan, and Hugo kind of gave us a little overview of it. Any things that pop out to you guys that are really exciting about the strategic plan going forward?
Yeah. So I think the thing that we're most interested in, apart from just the food access component of it, is the diversified market access strategy. And so we've been working, the foundation has been working with GW on an institutional procurement study, specifically looking at DC agencies and their institutional procurement policy. And so we're really interested in how we can better assist diversified market access. And coupled with, I know we're both on the farm committee, Hugo and I are both on the farm committee for the Metropolitan Washington Council on Governments, and this is something that we're looking at there as well. And so how can we help marginalized producers access different types of market access? And so I know that that's a big priority for FRESHFARM as well, and so we're really interested in that.
Yeah, and then I already touched on it a little bit, but the increased attention to the vitality of the leadership, and leadership retention is a recent priority of the Roaring Brook Foundation. I think in part of that is because of our relationship to Hugo, and the last 7 years, I think our trajectory of giving really reflects that relationship that we've built, and one built on trust and sort of collaboration. But I think we're also interested in the sort of language of the objective of being like a thought leader in the food system and creating more data and information that can be used to work on the legislative aspect of the food system. And I found that really compelling aspect of the strategic plan as well.
Hugo?
Yes,
Do you have a favorite part of the strategic plan?
Oh my God, I think the favorite part of the strategic plan was the process, right? No, like I really feel that strategic plan is special because we build it up from the bottom up. That's why it took like a very long time. It was the first time we did that exercise, and we really went out to ask the staff. It was very, very collaborative. And once we thought it was ready, we actually brought it back to the staff so that we went this process to have something that would be really participative and robust. In the last I want to say like 3 years, I've been lucky to find people like so passionate about what they do, and they have the reflection of their passion as in that strategic plan. So I just see a lot of promise, and it's like a very exciting moment for us with the strategic plan.
I mean, that strategic planning process was robust and really reached out into the community. I mean, I was contacted and did kind of an interview with the consultant on that. I wasn't on the board at that time or directly connected to the organization, but was just kind of like a community supporter, and found it to be really insightful and in depth, and so I thought it was. Anybody else here participate in the strategic plan? Yeah. A few folks were interviewed. Yeah. Have you guys been out to cool events that FRESHFARM has held? Any anecdotes that you have of visiting any of the programs or projects and seeing it in action?
Yeah. Yeah, so when we moved here in 2015, we had moved here from the Dominican Republic, and my husband was transitioning from working internationally as a teacher to doing education policy. And so I was like, why don't you get a job at a farmer's market, like in the interim? Because I used to work at Grow NYC, which I think that you were just on a panel with them. So he got a job there on the weekends, and I would help out occasionally, and then I stopped because it is so tiring. And it was just a vital reminder of how rain, sleet, or shine, those farmers are out there, the vendors are out there, working tirelessly to bring food to our communities. And to then be able to work with FRESHFARM Community Food Works and see how they're helping to alleviate a lot of that pressure that the farmers feel and the producers feel by bringing their food to market, and really helping them, in some cases, double their income that they could make that day just from the revenue that they are making from bringing in additional product to the markets, is just revolutionary. So I'm just so happy to be a part of this program in a small way. But another thing that I will add is right after the merge with Community Food Works, while the nation was really reeling from the murder of George Floyd, organizations were rightly so being held accountable for their racial equity practices, and there was some discussion around some of the racial equity practices that FRESHFARM used for market access and the producers that they had at the market. And Hugo tackled that immediately and head on. And I was so impressed by the conversations that he had, the way that he knew that this was something that the organization itself had to address, not at a surface level. They had to address this institutionally at the markets, and the way that they dealt with producers and the way that they encouraged producers at their markets. So the foundation provided funding for racial equity to work in July and August of 2020 that expanded through that whole year. And I was just continually impressed by the vulnerability that they've shown, the actual work that they've done, and how they have really made institutional change to help advance the efforts from the producers at market.
How about Renee?
Yeah, I think, so I like Victoria, I worked, I live in Richmond, Virginia, and I worked for several years at as a market manager for a community-sourced agriculture program, so I really understand that when you work in those areas, you're wearing all of the hats, like there's not a, you know, it doesn't function in a way where you just do one thing, it doesn't work, really quickly falls apart. So I have a lot of also respect for just the energy that really is behind that work. But as far as anecdotal things, I had an opportunity to interview Hugo for my master's program. I had a leadership analysis and governance project that I did, so I used Hugo as a model of how to, you know, engage, like how to run boards and governance, and particularly we focused also on diversity and inclusion as being a part of the board structure. And I thought that Hugo had some really beautiful things to say, which just reflected so strongly the just vitality of the diverse perspectives that exist on the board and how important and celebrated that is. I think, I can't quote him directly, but it was something along the lines of like that the diverse perspectives are what really fuel the energy, and then if you're in a leadership position, thinking that you have all of the answers immediately will lead to sort of the demise of an organization. Like we really have to have a diverse thought to thrive, and I think that also reflects just having not a homogenous ecosystem doesn't thrive, right? So having diverse thoughts as well in the boardroom.
Anybody else have an anecdote they'd like to share?
I want to share one. So it's a little embarrassing, but as a board member.
For you or for somebody else?
For me. As a board member, I don't think I did tours of the farmers market, but I did never attended a footprints class. And I have attended like 6 already, and I just love seeing, I have a kid now, who's 3 years old, so now as a mom, I have a different perspective of when I see these little tiny humans with such personalities, like big personalities, and they welcome you into the room. And it's like, welcome, my name is whatever, and I make this, and this comes from this farmer, and and I am just amazed of how not only that, like their presence and how much they know already about food. I wish I knew that much about food when I was 6 or 7 years old. But also I'm sure, because now I am raising a kid, I know that those seeds that are planted will last for a lifetime, meaning through adulthood, right? right? They'll learn to value fresh food. They'll gain awareness about the food system, where my food comes from, why is it important that I buy local, etc. In a recent event that we had with the mayor in Ward 7 at a school, Kimball, right? And there was a mom there whose daughter is now in college, I think. So she started with Jen, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago with her daughter. And she tells me, like, up to this day, she comes home and she wants me to buy this food, the kale, the lettuce, the specific vegetables. And that was thanks to footprints. So I just want to share that if you want, we are happy to set up a visit to a footprint school so you get the experience. It also do a farmer's market, but just kids are more fun. And so we're happy to set that up for you because that is a remarkable experience. So I want to share that with everyone.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because similar to Lena, I have been to lots of the farmers markets over the years, but I also had not been to a footprints event, and I went to that event at Kimball, and man, there was a kid's school in the mayor on how to make a quesadilla. I mean, it was it was pretty impressive. But what was also impressive was the actual facility, the classroom that was there, and what I heard about how the principal of the school actually was telling me some about this, and then I learned some more from other folks. So I'm going to say what I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong. But when Fresh Farm goes into a school with a food prints program, and as Hugo said, we put staff in there, and there's a whole curriculum that is actually available to others to use and all this. But my understanding is that in the past, we've gone into schools that have been older schools that didn't have a lot of facilities, and we would go in and designate a classroom that would be the kitchen area. And then when those schools are slated for redevelopment, reconstruction, rebuilding, since there's a kitchen like on their plan, it has to be included in the new school too. So that's like a long-term strategy about improving the infrastructure in these communities and neighborhoods, because I gotta tell you, that kitchen classroom was incredible. I mean, it had the whole demonstration kitchen set up with the overhead mirrors and different stations for kids to do different kinds of prep, and there was like a farmer's market kind of a nook, and there were kids doing telling all of these grown-ups that were there for this thing about how you measure certain things and how they decide about nutrition values and doing math and doing all the different things. And yeah, it was truly amazing. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to check that out if you're interested. Any last things that you guys want to make sure that you get to say for?
Yeah, well, just tacking on what you said, I also haven't visited the food prints program I'm looking forward to, but I did work at a botanical garden where we would cook the food and then we would have a farmer's market. And just like, if you've ever worked with children or have children, you just understand that deep impulse that children have to nurture, and they want to nurture each other, they want to love, they want to give, and being able to pour that into a garden, being able to see the fruits of their labor come back to them is just so fulfilling. Just amazing. So.
And I think just lastly, I know that there's so many funders in here, and Hugo talks so glowingly about the impact that our funding from the foundation has had. But I remember distinctly a call that we had in one of my first months that I was at the foundation in 2018, where we have contracts for an operating foundation, and so we're significantly involved in the partners that we work with. And so he had made a call to ask if they could transition one budget line item to another. And coming from my other background, I was like, well, yeah, I mean, of course we could do that. This is indicative of the way that we used to approach at the foundation and philanthropy as a whole, those types of relationships. And so now that call would not likely have to happen. We built into the contract that you are the owner of your budget, you know what's best for your organization, and you know what's necessary in order to create the most monumental impact in the communities. You don't need to waste your time as an ED, as an organization, asking me if you can move one line item, a significant amount of money from one line item to another line item. You know what you need to do for your organization, and I'm proud to say that we have made that shift, and I also am ashamed to say that we hadn't made that shift at the time, but that we are now. And so for Philanthropy as a whole, just learning to trust our partners, especially those partners that you've been working with for so long, this organization, from Community Food Works to Fresh Farm, has made such monumental impact, and we're just so proud to have been partnering with them on the food security side. And I know that the early childhood team is so excited to continue the partnership with them.
And if I could quickly add on to what Victoria said, I think that, yeah, we are also so excited about this next phase. And we, just yesterday, we had our quarterly meeting, so I can announce that we approved $150K for the Fresh Farm campaign and unrestricted funds for the food prints and the food hub. But it just goes to show, I think, just the level of trust that we have that's built over this period of time as a foundation, and just ready to see what happens next.
Wow, that's amazing.
And for me, I think what is important is that, again, like, we have been lucky to have investments during this difficult process. And what I've been trying to do the last few years is like build a team that would create that infrastructure to take us into the next level. And today we have here like incredible people that encourage you to talk. Actually, Jen, we're talking a lot about like footprints, but today is your birthday, right? So happy birthday. But you know, like what I see is like I have to tell people to be patient, like, because we all want things to change quickly, and we're like such a lot of like energy going through that. Like I see like Jen and Beth like in agony when they don't know how to say no to schools that they want to come to have like footprints, because it's like such an incredible program and so transformative that it's difficult to say like, no, we cannot go this year to our school, we have to work with the city. That is like what we face, like how we see that the demand for programs are so high, and we believe that there's like a way to grow our programs, to expand them, to be replicated. We are being like innovative in many ways, and some of the things we do could be example to other areas. So it is a good moment to invest. But I trust that one of the reasons why FRESHFARM has been successful is because people that are working in the organization just believes in the mission, is like really passionate about what they do, and that is like truly invaluable. So just that, like, you know, Lena joined our team, and our development team has worked really hard. This is the first time we do something like this, is because the organization is like truly different right now in the way that we can approach our program. And so I am very grateful for the ways that you support these, and some of you like now I feel like have like such a close relationship, and I trust the way we work, and I'm very happy that we can continue dreaming to bring this organization to different levels. So thank you.
Well, thank you all. Lena, I don't know if there's still time for any questions, or if we are.
I want to be
wrapping
respectful of people's times. It's 10:20, 10:18. So unless anyone has any question, or we have questions from Zoom, Mike? No.
No, can we just say thank you to Margie?
Of course.
So Margie prepared this food, you know, like she is like the best. Margie, like really, like you just have to meet Margie to just wanna be with her. We have like literally our young staff saying that, like, I just wanna be like Margie, and she offered to cook breakfast for us today. Her best accomplishment as a footprints teacher, like among other things, she used to work at the White House. So, you know, she was the pastry chef during the Obama administration. So Margie, we're very grateful for your work. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I want to sort of end close. Thank you so much, Victoria, Morgan,